Good morning and welcome to the Marketing Rocketfuel podcast. My name is Michael. This is Drew coming from down south. Drew, what do you got for us this morning?
Hola, bienvenidos a Marketing Rocketfuel con Michael Aldea y yo, Drew Horine. We are broadcasting from sunny Tulum, Mexico, in Quintana Roo. It is beautiful down here, and I'm doing right now what the topic of this podcast is, which is taking a little break, recharging the batteries, and having some fun and getting a little work done while I'm at it.
So, Drew, you said we, and no, it is not we, it is you that is
Well, yeah,
taking a break.
I am. Yeah, Michael's still in the studio, as you can see from his guitar and his trading cards behind him. So,
Yes. So, how are things south of the border, Drew?
it is wonderful down here. It's very hot, of course, but that's what we wanted. The weather up in Charlotte wasn't too nice to us the couple of days before we left, so it made it kind of easy to get on the plane. But yeah, I'm down here with my wife and daughter, and we're just kind of exploring, and we're actually taking a month to step away from the day to day and strategize and recharge ourselves, but also to get some good content for our Instagram channel and really just do some planning as far as the business comes. We've got some new things coming this summer, and we wanted to make sure we get those off of the ground right.
Well, I want to give you the opportunity to completely flex here. What is the average day for you now? And just sort of highlight what the most um, variability you have from your day to day in when you're here in North Carolina. So, what's the average
Well,
day look
on an
for you
average
there?
day in North Carolina, I am not swimming in the coral reef, videoing tropical fish, run swimming around through the seagrass, or running up, taking a boat ride to go visit a family of manatees. So that kind of differs from our day to day, but we're not doing that every day. We purposefully we rented an apartment for a month, to kind of get a feel for what it's like to live here. And um, so on a day to day, I'm getting up early in the morning, which I always do anyway.
Right. Right.
Um, but I'm sitting up on the rooftop, doing some meditation and letting the sun rise. Um, I will check my emails and run through those, try to get those knocked out in the morning. And anything that's pressing, most things I can leave to the team back home. Um, so if something does require my attention or somebody's got a question for me, I can answer it really quick. So that's been kind of low stress. Um, and and then by the time my daughter gets up, because she's a late sleeper, uh by the time she gets up, we're usually ready to get up and hop on the scooter and the ATV and head over someplace and grab some breakfast. We had brunch yesterday at this restaurant on the beach, and it was just, the Caribbean Sea is just beautiful right
Wow.
now. um the seaweed is low on the beach, and so Tulum has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. um and it just helps you kind of get perspective on
Yeah.
things. By the time it gets pretty hot in the afternoon, we come back to the apartment, and I check to see if there's any other work that needs to be done. I might have a half hour meeting or something. So I am still working while I'm here, but it's not nearly the pace of what's happening when I'm at the home office. This afternoon, I'm going to go visit a Rotary Club here in Tulum, um, and that's going to be pretty interesting. I saw the park that they made here. It was a beautiful park right in the center of town, and so I'm really anxious to meet those folks.
Well, you mentioned it in the intro, or just after the intro, that we're going to be talking about why we need to take a break sometimes, and a change of scenery can be good. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about self care, being flexible, and why breaks need to be intentional, why we should take a break. We have an action tip coming near the end of the episode, and then a quick, not so concrete preview of what's coming next for the podcast. But if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, comment below, leave a review for the podcast. We'd love to know what you are thinking when you listen to us or watch us. So, Drew, in the notes here, I'm looking at them right here. You have
Well,
here,
our
it
notes are
says
kind of scarce this
it's a
week
little
too, you know,
thin,
we it's
a little
almost like we
thin.
took a break on making the notes
There
too,
you
so
go. Um, Self care is not selfish. Unpack that a bit for our listeners,
oh,
and then
man.
I'll chime in on what I think about that as well.
You know, I've been running escape plan marketing for 6.5 years now, and the first half of that was well, I mean, there's always stress in business, but it was ultra stressful. I mean, constant stress, constant worry about what was going on, constant, just beating down on you. And as a small business owner, I mean, it gets very stressful. And if you're not, there's this temptation that you should always be working on the business. You should always be working in the business. You should, and you start to feel guilty if you step away from something, if you go do something for yourself, if you go take a walk, if you go, I mean, I'm not talking about even taking a vacation. I'm talking about like simple things like go for a run, or go out and just sit in the woods or take a walk on the local greenway or something. Those things felt selfish to me, like
Mm,
I was taking away from what I was supposed to be doing. Like I wasn't getting my work done. Um, and I met with some business coaches and some other people who were in business who were transparent, and I'm so thankful for transparent people because when you're in business, especially, you go to all these networking events and everybody at the network event says the same thing. Oh, business is great, things are wonderful, we are awesome, we're doing great, when in reality 90% of those people are feeling like their world is caving in.
yes.
um, and that's just, even if your business is doing well, you feel that overwhelming pressure all the time. And if you don't have a way to get that off your chest, to talk about that, and to relax and let it go for a little bit, you're going to implode and you're not going to be effective at your business. And the harder you try, the less effective you're going to be. And so and I'm going to be completely transparent in this podcast about some things that I did and some things that I went through, and they're not always pretty, but it's important because I want other business owners to know that it's okay. You don't have to have it all together to own and run a business. And um, this notion that you've got to be perfect and polished and all that, it's a falsehood, as a lie that you don't need to believe. So some of the things that I did to start caring for myself, I've been running for a long time, but I really had kind of started to get out of the habit, um, especially earlier on in the business, because I wanted to focus on the business all the time. And when I made the decision that I was going to start training for specific events and start training for milestones, um, and that, yeah, that's hard, but it's also therapeutic. It's also relaxing. It let me get away. I could just put my headphones in. Nobody wanted anything from me on the trail. Nobody could call me on the trail. I would turn my phone on. I would put do not disturb on, and nobody was allowed to bother me while I was running. That hour was mine, and nobody was allowed to take that from me. And setting that boundary helped me to be able to say, I am my the care for myself is important, not because I just want to care for myself, but because it enables me to take care of the things that are important in my life. It enables me to take care of my family. It enables me to take care of my business. It enables me to take care of the causes I want to support. It enables me to make sure my spiritual health is where it needs to be. Um, and for a while, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I mean, I was, a lot of people call it midlife crisis. Um, and so I was kind of going through that as well. And um, I started heading down some roads that I really shouldn't have been heading down. Um, Started following and listening to people I shouldn't have been listening to because I was so burnt out and so stressed out about everything.
Yeah.
Um, and so that 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 was starting the road to me imploding as a human being and as a business owner. And if I had not made some changes, I can see now from a couple years perspective that I would have imploded, and it would not have just cost me my business. It would have cost me my marriage. It would have cost me my family. It would have cost me everything. And that's if I had not started taking care of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, then everything would have fallen apart.
Well, thank you, Drew, for being transparent, being authentic, sharing that's not easy, especially with a forum like this. Um, you know, I'd like to think that business, and I don't know who said this, but business is a contact sport, right?
Mhm.
And we get beat up. We get beat up. All of us, and I may be projecting here, but we deal with some level of um, imposter syndrome, and so
Oh my
we're always battling that. Um, and if we're pegged out, if we're absolutely redlining it all the time, it doesn't matter if it's mentally, spiritually, physically. I mean, there's not an engine in the world that's built better than the human body, but even as well as we are built and designed, um, if you redline it all the time, things are going to start breaking down.
Mhm.
And there's certain jobs that you and I have as entrepreneurs, as marketing professionals, that we always preach this, right? We always preach that as a leader in your organization, there's only a few things that you can do or you should be doing. You shouldn't be doing everything. Well, in our personal lives, there are things that we don't want to outsource either. We don't want to outsource being a husband. That would be
Right.
weird. We don't want to outsource being great fathers. And if we don't take care of ourselves, then those things start to slip and hit the floor. And then you look up, and then it's years down the road, and and then you're having to duct tape a marriage together. You're having to explain to your kids why um, you weren't there for the important stuff. So
Right.
good on you. You are taking it to and I use this as a compliment. You're taking this to an extreme. Yeah, you're leaving your entire environment, changing locations, changing time zones, changing zip codes. It's always a joke between my wife and I stole this from somebody in sales. They're like, you want to make sales? Leave your zip code. The moment you leave your zip code, your phone's gonna ring. It always happens. Um, and I don't know why, maybe it's the whole
I can
watch
tell you I've
pot.
gotten so many spam calls since we landed.
You know, I don't know if it's a watch pot never boils phenomenon, but taking a break and being and doing that on purpose, I think is a great thing to engineer into your life and into your business. So let's move on. Well, actually, I don't want to move on quite yet. Drew, everybody that
Let's talk
listens to
about
this,
some of the things specifically
yeah,
that that I did here because, it's easy to say, "Okay, take a break, care for yourself," but a lot of people don't even know what that looks like. That
right,
whole concept feels alien,
right,
and it did to me. Um, and so I'll tell you a little bit of what was going on. So, um, I was running my business, and we were getting customers. Dave Ramsey has his 5 steps of where you are as a business owner. You start off as a treadmill operator, and then you go into that pathfinder stage. Um, and so I was very much the treadmill operator, and trying to just kind of do everything, handle everything. And one of the first things that a business coach told me to do, and some other people who had been in business, hire somebody to do something.
yeah,
Um, and I was like, I can't afford to hire anybody. I can barely, get any business myself. They said you are not going to grow unless you hire somebody. And so I hired somebody, and it was scary. It was scary to pay somebody to do some of what I was trying to get paid to do. And it was really terrifying, but started to free me up. It took one thing off of my plate. Um, in addition to running the business, though, I was also on staff at a church, as the digital outreach director. So I was handling all of the digital communications for a fast growing church, um, and I was also involved with, several things in that church, but also, with some nonprofit things and some volunteer efforts, and also trying to manage family life, and also trying to, be a good husband. We have an adopted daughter that, had a lot of, physical challenges to deal with, and so all of those things, were creating a 1,000-hour work week for me, and I didn't have 1,000 hours in my week. It's like the old Beatles song, 8 days a week
yep,
here. But um, the thing that I also had to start doing, um, was taking some things off of my plate and not replacing them with other things. I had to stop doing some things. I was like coaching a robotics team. I was, leading the kid zone area, all of these things. And so I had to start removing things from my life one at a time, strategically, that were that one, somebody else could be doing probably more effectively, and two, that were, I don't want to say no longer bringing value to my life, because everything was important, and everything felt important,
yeah,
but they were just, they weren't the most important. I had to pick what was most important, and that was hard. It was extremely difficult because I loved everything I was doing. I loved being a part of all of these things, but I couldn't do it all, and I had to stop doing it all.
right,
And so one at a time, I started eliminating some of these things from my life. I stopped volunteering in the kid zone, which I mean, my wife and I had done children's ministry for 20 years.
right,
Um, and so that was really hard. I just love kids. Um, I transitioned out of being on staff at the church. Um, and that was extremely difficult for me because I had wrapped up a lot of my identity in that. I eventually gave up the robotics team coaching. So those things, and we moved on to another church where I could come in and just be a part of the church and not necessarily go do everything for them. And I came in intentionally. One of the first things I did, like the first week, I talked to the pastor and said, "Hi, I'm Drew. I was on staff at the church. I'm not going to do that here."
Nice.
and they respected that because they could. I'm at a place now where they understand and appreciate burnout, and they respect that. Um, I so cutting things out, I stopped volunteering for all but one organization. I stopped doing pro bono work for all but one organization. It's important to give back. I don't want to just stop that because that's a part of who I am. I have to give back to the community. I want to be a part of the community. But I focused that, and I got a lot more effective at that because I gave up everything else and started doing it just for one.
Well, I mean,
It's amazing how that
that
happens.
hits
You can do a
on
whole bunch of things badly, or you can do
yeah.
one thing really well.
That hits on just a it's not a business thing, it's just a thing. You can't give
Yeah,
what you don't have. I mean,
right.
and you're it and, there's a reason why if I mean, you just flew out there. There's a reason why they tell you if the poop hits the propeller and those masks drop down, they don't tell you to take care of everybody else around you first. They tell
Right.
you to take care of you first so that you can help other people. I mean,
That's right. You have to put that
that's a
oxygen mask on
and
yourself.
it seems
Uh,
selfish, right? It seems like you're being
it
selfish, but it's
seems
not.
heartless
Yes,
sometimes, but then I started eliminating things from my life, but then I started adding in some things that were important to care for myself.
absolutely.
I started seeing a therapist. Um, and that was incredibly important for me because my brain was so spinning around that I could not focus on what was really important in my life.
Right.
And I was chasing after things that weren't important in my life. And the therapist I was seeing really helped me to see those. And a lot of people, I I've met a lot of people that have a very low opinion of mental health and therapy. Um, and I'm going to tell you, those people are wrong. It's Mental health is important. Mental health, especially if you're going to run your business. How many of you have ever worked for a crazy boss? How many of you have ever worked for somebody that you can tell that they are imploding, but they don't know it? You know, that's important, and I've had clients that I've encouraged, "Go start talking to a counselor," and some of them have resisted, and their businesses are imploding because not because of what everybody else is doing, but because they're not effective leaders because um, they're not in a mental place where they need it. People gave Simone Biles static for taking a mental health day during the Olympics. And I applaud her for that. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, that's just those millennials or those Gen Zs, and they're so fragile." No, they're smart. They're smart. They realize it's important. They realize that too many people have destroyed themselves for something that's not important long term. So I started seeing a therapist. I started getting regular massages. And that's something I never thought I would do. I never, I always thought, oh, that's a woman thing. That's a spa day thing.
You're so
I tell you
bougie,
what,
Drew. You're bougie now.
it does wonderful, and it's not cheap.
No.
And I started doing it when I didn't think I could afford it, and that was the thing. Um, since I started taking I started traveling more. I started taking weekends and weeks, strategic weeks off where I was completely out of communication. This trip I'm taking here, I'm off for a month and I am in communication, but I'm in much less
Right.
communication. But there are times where I take a weekend where nobody is allowed to contact me except for my family. That weekend is dedicated to my family. We went glamping a couple of months ago. It was awesome. Um, we go way to we live in North Carolina, so we go to the Carolina coastline, to some of the beach communities there. Sometimes we'll go out to Gatlinburg and to the mountains. But when we do that, we're completely out of communication. I'm not allowed. I don't look at my computer. I don't answer emails. I don't. Um, I don't do any of those things because I need a complete break from the business so that I can come back and be more effective in business. And this is this. Oh, one of my favorite phrases is nobody ever died from a marketing emergency.
Right. That's
So
absolutely true.
and everything seems so important. Oh my gosh, my Google ads didn't get 10x return this month. You know, okay, you're not going to die. It got 9, it's okay. Or it got 1, it's okay. You're gonna and that seems a little bit aloof about our clients, but really it's in our clients' best interest for me to be in a healthy mental state to lead my team that's going to help their business grow. And that's the thing. I don't have just my business to worry about. I have, we take care of other
Right.
businesses. Um, but I have, my responsibility is to lead my team, and to be the most effective leader I can, I have to care for myself. And I have to make sure that I'm in good physical shape. I have to make sure that I'm in good mental shape. I've got to make sure that I'm in good spiritual shape. And, I'm not going to I have my own spiritual beliefs, but I'm not going to talk about spiritual beliefs in this episode, because that's not the purpose of what we're doing. We're not a religious company. Um, I don't think companies can be religious. The people in them can. Um, and so I have my spiritual beliefs. Michael, I know you do as well. But whatever that is, the things that are meaningful to you, you need to find that out and you need to pursue that. And it's running a business. If you're thinking about starting a business, this I just told a good friend of mine this, because she's thinking about leaving her company that she works for, and going out on her own. And I didn't discourage her from doing it, but I was like, it will eat you alive. It will go after your spirit and soul like nothing else will. You will face temptations you've never faced before. You will face challenges you've never faced before. You will face burnout like you've never faced it before. And if you don't take that time to care for yourself, it will eat you alive. Um, Now, since I started doing these things, since I started traveling more, since I started caring more for myself, what I've seen is taking getting away from my business has actually helped my business to grow.
Funny thing, right?
It seems like such an oxymoron, but and business owners hate to admit this. They're like, nothing can function without me.
Right.
It functions better without me.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And that's the kind of business you want to grow. If you're growing a healthy, successful business, you want it to function without you.
And it's just like
You
anything
want
else,
it to
Drew.
be able
I mean,
to,
you let's
yeah,
if let's just step away from the business side of things. I mean, we want it. Let's just talk about our kids, right? We don't want our kids to
yeah,
not be able to function without us. We're actually raising our kids to be, I look. I love it when people say, "Oh, your kids are so polite," or "Your kids are good." And our goal, Susan and I's goal, is not to raise good kids. Our goal is to raise great adults. I mean, and the
right.
purpose, the one of the things that we try to do, and we could apply this to business, is just like you said, we need to engineer our businesses to be able to run without us, because we got to check our ego at the door. We got to realize that there are certain things that we can do, but there's probably some folks that could probably do it better. than us. Shh, don't tell
That's a
anybody.
rule in my company. I only hire people that can do it better than I
Well,
can.
then that makes you a smart man, right? You if I'm the smartest person in the room, that room is in serious trouble.
Yeah,
Serious trouble.
I need to get a different
Yes,
room.
absolutely. So, Drew, let's talk about and again, thank you for sharing sort of some real personal stuff. Um, but let's talk about being intentional here. And I'm just going to use you as a use case. So let's back up, like let's reverse engineer this. You're in Mexico now, and
Mhm.
so for you to be able to get away with your whole family, not just you, it'd be infinitely easier if it was just you, right? But now you've got a plan for your
Oh my god.
family to be
If
there.
it was just me, nobody'd hear from me for this month. I'd be lost in the jungle someplace,
There you go. So
uh,
let's reverse engineer this. How far in advance are you planning this getaway, this break, and then hopefully who listeners of this episode can apply some of these principles to them taking a break on purpose.
okay, so, I mentioned that we travel, quite a bit now, and I'm gonna be very transparent. We are not independently wealthy people. My business, is not a multi-million dollar business yet. It's on its way there. Um, but we are not in a place where, I just make millions and millions of dollars and I can just do whatever the heck I want. That and so we have to choose to do this and to make it a priority in our lives. Um, and we have to choose to to how we're going to do it. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I can't, I can't take the time away or things like that." Um, can't is a four-letter word in our family and our business. We don't say I can't. We say how can we? And it starts with that mindset. And this was something I taught on the robotics team too, because week one every season, I would put up on the whiteboard, can't, and I'd draw a big circle with a line through it. That didn't look like a circle with a line. That looked like squigglies there, but um, I'd draw a big circle with a line through it. And because that's the most limiting thing there is. It's not money. It's not situation. It's the belief that you can't do something. And once you say, if it's important to me, I can. If it's important to me, the question doesn't become why can't I? It's how can
Right.
I? And so that's step one. Just determine, if it's important to you, if you really want to do it, say, how can I do this? And that's almost with anything. It's not just with vacationing. It's not just with rest. It's with anything. If you're an entrepreneur, you should already be asking that question. How can I do this? How can I, if you need to pivot your business, how can I pivot my business? Um, so ask, how can I? But then we've been planning this particular trip for about the past year. Um, really, since the last time we visited Tulum, we said, we want to come back and we want to stay for an extended stay. Um, my wife and I came here by ourselves last year, um, and fortunately, our son was still at home but grown, so the kids could stay for a week without us. Um, and I want to come back to that particular point there as well because that's important too. But um, so my wife and I came back here for a recharge trip, and we love it. It hadn't been our first time to Tulum, but we absolutely loved it last time and had great adventures. And we said we want to do this for an extended time where it's not so fast paced. Go to this, go to this, go to this, go to
Right.
this, where we build in that intentional rest time in between. Um, and so we started looking then at how can we do this. Um, and we rented an apartment for a month, um, and and said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to live there as locals, and just be a part of the community." And it's been amazing. We've been here for a week now, and it's been pretty amazing. But we also planned some smaller trips in between where we're just getting away. Airbnb is wonderful, by the way. Um, I don't stay in hotels anymore. Um, and I don't get any money from Airbnb or anything like this or Verbo or any of those other things. But what I look on Airbnb and I find places that are where I want to go, and a lot of times we're kind of flexible on the dates. You can say, "Hey, do you want to spend a weekend or what?" And you'll find places to go. You look at the ratings on them, you look at the pictures, and see if it's what interests you. Because what interests me is not what's going to interest everybody else out there. I like the beach. My wife likes the mountains. My wife likes ancient ruins. I like you know um, driving the scooter around the back streets, and so we found places that met both of our needs. Um, so find whatever works for you. We've found everything from uh, weekends at the beach to weekends out in the middle of nowhere glamping. I am not a sleep on the ground person, so glamping works well for me. It's where they got everything there for you. Um, and we started being intentional about, every 6 weeks to 2 months, we're going to do something together as a family over a weekend, where family is the priority. Family is the only ones allowed to do it, and or and to be a part of that. And it's made a big difference for us. It's helped us get to know one another as a family. But then my wife and I also intentionally schedule time where we go off by ourselves, without kids, without anybody else. Um, and that's important too. I believe this is my personal opinion. I believe your spouse should be the single most important person in your life. My wife comes before my kids. My wife comes before anybody in business. My wife comes before anybody else in my life. Period. There is no question about that whatsoever. There's nobody else in my life that's more important than my wife. And some people would say, "Well, why aren't your kids the most important thing in your life?" Because without my spouse, uh, then my kids' lives suffer.
Right.
Um, oh, who was it? It was a great speaker from way back in the day. I'll remember his name as soon as the podcast comes out. I'll probably put it down in the notes. But um, said the most important thing a father can do for their children is to love
Right.
their mother.
I completely agree.
And part of what was going on with me a few years back when my brain was all turning around is I was getting those out of priority, and I wasn't loving their mother like I should, and that could have all fallen apart very easily. I wasn't loving my kids like I should, and that could have all fallen apart very easily. And it all came down, boiling it down, was burnout. Um, and so taking those breaks and taking that intentional time to be with your SO, um, is extremely important, because your relationship is the most important thing in your life. And you've got to realize that if this business ever comes to the place where it's going to take the place of my relationship with my wife, the business has to
Right.
go. I will go work for Domino's, you know, and because it's that important. I will, I'll, sit and play guitar for, pennies or pesos on the beach or something, but the business cannot come before your relationship with your spouse. And if it does, then you've got to get things back into priority. Go see a counselor, go see, and people are like, oh, I can't afford counseling. Well, it's a whole lot cheaper than a divorce.
Amen, brother.
And and you're going to pay one way or the other. And you're going to pay by 1,000 cuts, or um, you're going to get your priorities straight and get your relationship straight. And if you're not married, um, you still have relationships in your life. People are the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, we you can't underestimate how connected we are when it comes to business. There's that old adage. It's not it's not personal. It's just business. Well, I'm sorry. When you own your own business, it's personal,
It's
and
personal.
um, and if you don't take care of what's important but not urgent, it will become urgent probably sooner than you'd like to realize. So
Right. And it probably is already urgent. You just
you
don't
don't even
realize it yet.
realize it. Well, Drew,
Yeah.
our action tip for this week is how somebody, or if somebody can calculate how long you can be away. I have sort of a calculation in my head, but that's
Hmm.
heavily tied um, to my bank account, and so I don't know if there's a way to separate that. But
Well, you know
how
what?
can we calculate
Here's the
how
thing.
long we can be away?
And bank accounts are very important, but that should not keep you from getting away. Um, because there are things that you can do that cost no
Right.
money to get away. There are things that you can do that cost very little money to get away. Um, you know, if you can't afford to go glamping, go camping. If you can't afford to go camping, shut down and set up a tent in your backyard. Take a staycation. It's not about the money, it's about the intention. And if you get intentional about it, you will find a way to do it. And if your business is at that place, um, where you have nothing there to do anything else, you really need to be rethinking things. And that's not to be mean, because I know a lot of small businesses, they live on that shoestring thread, and it's rough. You don't know from month to month. You're 1 month away from closing your doors. Um, that can almost be the most important time to do it, because you need to be able to get away and get that perspective. If you're in the thick of it day to day to day, you've got to be able to step back and get perspective. And if you can't get your own perspective, get somebody else's perspective. Have somebody look at what you're doing. If you absolutely cannot be parted from your business because you're going to go out of business because you take a weekend away, then you have a serious problem in your business. And that's just reality. That doesn't feel good, but you need to
Yeah.
rethink that. Now, if you're just starting out a business, when I started out this business, I've talked about this before. I drove for Lyft on the weekends so that I wouldn't have to take my salary, and so that we could make ends meet while I was building up this business and trying to figure out what we wanted to be. Um, and that was hard. It was really hard. I was not taking that time away. I don't regret doing that. When you're starting up a business, frankly, it's going to be really
Yeah.
hard. It's going to be a lot harder than you think it is. But you need to plan in advance when you're going to be able to take some time away, when you're going to be able to take a weekend off, and a long weekend off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, something like that. Take that time off. Um, Plan one day a week where you are off, where you are not working, because I know how small business owners are. We want to work all the time. Plan that time where you're not working and you're not replacing work with something else that's just like
Right.
work. Because that's what I was doing. I was replacing work with other work, um, And so plan that time where you have that off. And it's not about the money. It's not about doing exotic things. I want you to be able to do exotic things. I want you. That's why I called our company Escape Plan, because I want our factory owners to spend less time in their factories and more time on the beach, or replace the word beach with whatever your beach is. Like, I don't want to quote the cologne commercials, but I'm going to, find your beach. Um, I'm in Mexico.
Yeah,
It's all over the
absolutely.
place down here. But so you have to be intentional about that. But then also figuring out how long you can get away. You you have to do it regardless. I mean, it's just, you have to do it regardless. But that doesn't mean you're stupid
Right.
about it. You have to put people in place in your business that you can trust for a day or two while you go away. And the first time you go away, it's not going to be, an extended month vacation. It's not going to be a week vacation, unless your business just takes off and you're doing amazing. Um, and then watch out, because things could implode like Atari. But anyway, um, boy, that's an old reference. But but start putting people in place and giving them the responsibility and the empowerment to do what you need to do, or what needs to be done while you're away. The people that we have at Escape Plan Marketing know their jobs, they know what they're supposed to do, and they have the authority to make the decisions that they need to make. And, our creative director, Jen, who was on a few episodes ago, I still meet with her once a week, and we talk about what's going on this week. She has the authority to meet with clients, to make decisions to move their projects forward. And I don't have to worry about it getting done, because I trust her. I know she's competent, and I know she can do the job. Now, if you don't have people who are competent and can do the job, then you've either got a training issue or a personnel issue. You've either not trained them right, or you've got the wrong people on the wrong
Right.
seat in the bus. And sometimes that means you need to make a change with that person on the bus. Sometimes that means you need to step back and trust people to do their jobs. A lot of times it's not even a training issue. It's just that you won't get out of the way.
So as we wrap up, I do want to just chime in here. I think the take home message, or one of the take home messages from this episode, is regardless if you're going to Mexico, if you're going to the backyard, if you're going to a Holiday Inn Express, um, whatever that break looks like, it needs to be on purpose. It needs to be intentional for two reasons. For something to be intentional, you're going to have to plan for it. And number two, when you take that break, when you take that intentional break, it sends a signal to both your clients, your customers, and the people that you're taking the break with, of the priority. Um, you
Mhm.
know, yes, customers want to feel like they're your clients, and your customers want to feel like they're your only client or their only customer. But I guarantee you, and it's counterintuitive because the customer's always right, but I guarantee you, your customer base, at least the customers you want to keep or the clients you want to keep, that know what's important to you, and that you're willing to step away for what's important to you, they will respect you for that. They will respect you for the fact that you have boundaries, and you're actually setting a great example for them as well. I mean, we're dealing with business owners and companies that they're not all doing the right thing, and if they were, if they were doing all the right things, they probably wouldn't be working with Drew. I mean, let's face it, right? And
Yeah.
so,
And
um,
I actually have a good example of that. And I wasn't necessarily going to bring this up, and I'm not going to name the company, but we actually have a company that we parted ways with a few weeks ago. Um, and they were my one client that was most, shall we say, concerned about me going away for
hmm,
a month. Um, and and we kind of felt it coming to a head, and they were somebody that really needs to do all of these things that we're saying. Um, and I'm not here to. They're a good company. They're good people that work for that company. I still love and appreciate them. And I hated that we had to part ways, but we parted ways with one another. It was not working because the boundaries were not going to stay healthy. And they probably weren't healthy to begin with, but they weren't going to stay healthy. And honestly, my relationship with that person that owns the business was more important to me than the money I could make off of them. And you know, they one of us was going to pull the trigger on that. They happened to pull it first, but it was going to happen one way or the other. Um, and I hate that. When things go, I guess, go south. But at the same time, I'm kind of thankful for it because with a little bit of time and distance, we'll be able to remain friends and move forward. And it's because relationships in your life are more important than the money you can make off of it. And I said before, I am not independently wealthy. I still rely on my clients to make money. I still rely on my clients to eat. Um, but at the end of the day, if the money I make off of people is more important than the people that we make it from, then my priorities are going to get out of whack. My ethics are going to get out of whack. And so, to your point, Michael, is yeah, send that signal to the people in your life, whether they're clients, whether they're friends, whatever, that the people in your life are the priority.
Well, Drew, it's been a fantastic episode, but we do want to plant some seeds on what people can be looking forward to in upcoming episodes. This isn't concrete. This isn't written down. It's just some ideas that Drew and I are kicking around. But before Drew chimes in, I do want to say if there are topics or guests that you would like us to either cover or guests that you'd like us to interview, drop those in the comments below. Let us know, and we'll do our best to get those topics covered and those people interviewed. So, Drew, what do we have to look forward to when you get back stateside?
Well, we're going to wrap up what we've been calling season two, where we've been learning a lot about the people on your marketing team, and so it's all been about the people this season. Um, and we're going to go into some specific topics that really impact um, the solopreneurs, the mom and pops, the storefronts of America, and their marketing. Some real concrete things that these types of companies need to be doing. Whether you're just starting out, whether you've been there for 20 years and you're just a couple of people running the business, um, and we're also going to be announcing some new things that are coming. I'm not going to reveal what they are yet with my company. That we're going to be putting some new things out specifically for those types of businesses, and so those will be launching here this summer, and I'm really excited about those. But more than that, I think they're gonna address the most common questions that I get whenever I'm at a networking function, whether it's a chamber event or a Rotary event or whatever. We're going to start addressing those questions that I keep getting asked over and over and over again about from solopreneurs and micro business owners.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like the wildlife there wants you to get off of this podcast episode. So we're going to let you go. If you've made it this far in the episode, again, like, subscribe, comment below, leave a review. Drew, any parting shots before we let folks go?
Adios, amigos. I'll
All right.
see you next time. Hasta
See ya.
pronto.